That is so good. And then I was really eagerly anticipating the grade from my teacher. And he said to me, well, Karen, the talk itself was pretty good, but you looked at the ceiling the entire time. And I went, what? I had no idea that I did that. And I say that because a lot of times we're not really aware of how we're coming across. And when you think about speaking with confidence, a big part of it is eye contact. So we're going to talk about that a little bit more. But I'm originally from Minneapolis, Minnesota, and it was always my dream to live in San Francisco. So back in a long time ago, let's just put it that way, a very long time ago, I put a bunch of stuff in the trunk of my car, drove to San Francisco, and I never left. And I've been here for most of my life. But I can remember that moment so significantly because it was such a weird experience of thinking that I had done a really good job and then I really hadn't. So that was the beginning of my journey around self-awareness, around speaking. And speaking with no matter who I'm talking to or coaching in the world, it doesn't matter how high level the person is, regardless of what they're doing in their lives. Confidence is a critical skill, and you all know this. And so, what I want to do is start with what you think of when you think about speaking with confidence. So, I want to have everybody move to the Jamboard here. You can see the link there.
Can you
So,
post it again for
yep,
us, please?
I sure can. Yep. And give me a second here.
We got
All
63
right.
people. There she is. There it is.
All right. Welcome, everybody.
And so you can share your screen.
Okay. And then everybody can pop in there.
Mhm.
So let's see. Give me just a second here. Okay. So the question is, what does speaking with confidence mean to you? So I'd love to have anybody make some notes there. And if you want to even take it a next step, what would it look like? Well, let's start with that. So what does speaking with confidence mean to you? There's a lot of different things that I've understood that it means from different people. And what we're going to talk about today is how you come across behaviorally. And what I mean by that is just how you come across with your body language and your voice. That's a huge part of speaking with confidence. And then another part of it, of course, is what you're actually saying. And as we already mentioned earlier, for some of you may not have all been here, but for a couple of brave people, at least one we're hoping for, we can do a role play. And that I will tell you, another thing that happened to me in my life experience was that I didn't raise my hand when I wanted to, and I missed out on an opportunity to speak. And a lot of times we hold back because we're nervous or we feel stupid or we think somebody's going to think that we're weird or whatever. And I want to encourage you that if something in your gut says to raise your hand and speak up, because each of you, no matter where you're at, no matter where your background is, you have a powerful story to tell just because of who you are. There's nobody in the world like you. You are a masterpiece. And speaking up is important so people can hear your voice and what you have to say. Thank you so much. That
Yeah.
means I can speak without fidgeting and let it flow naturally. Nice. Ooh, speaking loud and clear, good posture, making eye contact, clear with your words. This is great, everybody. Thank you so much. Please feel free to jump in here. By the way, this is my, oh, not saying too much. Yes. I think speaking confidently is speaking clear and knowing what you're talking about. Isn't that the truth? Good posture, speaking with confidence, showing no fear. This is super cool. By the way, everybody, this is my first time using Jamboard. So I'm learning something today. Talking without stammering, self-initiative. If I missed anybody else, feel free to just say what they are. Slow down, don't rush, don't mumble. What else? Speaking loud and clear so everyone hears you. Let's see. Speaking with, what else do we have here? Speak without fidgeting. Yep. Articulate your words properly. Self-initiative. I love the don't mumble. That's so good. Okay. What else do we have here? Did I miss any? Feel free to unmute yourself and say if I missed yours. These are great. Not speaking too much or too little. Main points. Absolutely. So good. Is anybody willing to unmute themselves and share just verbally while the Jamboard is happening? What confidence means to you, or maybe even a story when you didn't speak with confidence and what happened? Anyone? Anyone? Speaking your mind. Love that. Not being unsure and trusting what you know, whether it turns out to be right or wrong. Oh, that's good.
I heard something about a $5 what is it, gift card for our
Yes,
for
you
the
did.
brave one.
Thank you, Olga. So the first person to speak, I'm going to send you a $5 Starbucks gift card.
Unmute yourself and go for it.
Speak strongly and not doubt yourself. Absolutely. Feel free, by the way, anybody, when you're ready, unmute and speak. You can speak over me as I'm talking. This is a good time. Oh, I heard someone.
Wait, what do we have to say?
You're like, oh, I want a gift card. I'll figure out what to say later. What does speaking with confidence mean to you? And will you tell me your name, please?
My name is JC.
JC?
Yeah.
Hi.
Hey. I guess speaking with confidence means speaking clearly and not stuttering.
Okay. Awesome. Thank you so much. So before you go, JC, can you tell us an example of when you spoke with confidence? If you're open to doing that, no pressure.
Right now, because I usually stutter each time I talk.
Really? You're not at
Yeah.
all right now.
So I'm just taking it really slowly.
Smart. And that is really good advice, actually, for everybody here, because sometimes we tend to speak too quickly. Thank you so much, JC. I'm going to put my email in the chat. Actually, do you mind, Olga, doing that? At KarenLaos.com.
No, please.
So
Yeah.
Olga, we'll put that in the chat, and then you can email me, JC, and I'll send you a gift card. All right. So the first person to speak got a gift card, but we'd still love to have a couple of other people. Anybody else willing to speak, to say what speaking with confidence means to you?
I know we have a lot of women a lot of our girls are very brave.
Yeah. In the spirit of Women's Month.
Exactly.
Who would like to speak up? I'm looking at the rest of these here. These are so good. This is so good. Okay, going once, going twice. Raise your hand. Yes. Yes, who is that?
I'm Caitlin. I'm from Balboa.
Hi, Caitlin. Welcome.
Speaking with confidence for me is like taking a step of bravery and like initiative. It's like not only like is it like just something required that you have to do sometimes, but that little self push you give yourself to speak up and just take a leap of faith. That's what speaking with confidence means to me.
That's awesome. Thank you so much. Do you have an example in your life where you took that risk?
I participated in a lot of speech contests, and I will say I was really nervous, but then after like my first few words, I think I got like the hang of it.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Thank you for sharing, and thank you so much for speaking up here. It takes a lot of courage to do that, and especially in front of all these people, and that's a really big deal. And I want to just talk about the fact that speaking with confidence is really important. All of these ideas are just fantastic, and they're all so good. And what I want to talk about a little bit is speaking with confidence from a body language and voice perspective, and then talk a little bit about content. And then we'll ask in advance for one brave person. Hopefully we can at least have one, maybe two, to volunteer to do a role play. So I'm going to unshare this for a moment and share something else really quickly here and talk about a little bit around, hold on a second, around this body language piece, because if we can, I mean, communication in and of itself is pretty much the number one skill that we could have as human beings walking around the world. So many people aren't communicating with clarity and confidence. So I want to show you this idea of influence, that how do we actually influence other people, and how do people really make decisions? And there is a study I want to start with, because this is really interesting. A lot of times we don't think about this very often. And I want to invite you into a little bit more self-awareness around how you come across. And there was a study that was done a long time ago. And I'm going to ask you all to participate in this, by the way, in a moment. It's very no pressure, by the way. And there's a study that a guy named Albert Morabian did. He wrote a book called Silent Messages because he wanted to figure out, when people are talking to each other, what actually matters most. Is it the visual? Is it the verbal, meaning the content, like what you're actually saying? Or is it the voice and how you sound? Those three equal 100%, because in his research, he realized those three are always happening. Now, of course, we're talking about either virtual presentations like this or just communicating with someone in person. So I want to have you guess, maybe put this in the chat or just throw out by voice. You can just yell out if you want. Which of these do you think holds the most weight, or do you think they're all equal? And again, verbal means the message, so the words that you're actually saying. Vocal is how you sound, and then visual is what people see of you. So any guesses, or throw it in the chat, and then we're going to do an exercise, and then I'll give you the right answer.
So we have visual, vocal. You can see the chat, right?
Yeah, I can. Thanks. Okay, great. Anybody want to throw out percentages? Do you think they're all equal? How do you think some of this would be more of a math person? This would definitely not be me. I would not be guessing percentages. All right, lots of vocal. Okay, so let's do a quick exercise. Please follow along with me and make the peace sign with your hand like this, okay? Okay, Julia says verbal. Make the peace sign, follow along with me, please. Put this above your head. Put it to the side, above your head again, in front of you, and now here on your chin, on your chin. Okay, so most of you are following along with me, but this proves our point. Visual is the one that overrides everything else. And let me explain this. So let me give you the numbers here. I'm saying cheek, or excuse me, I'm saying chin, but you're seeing cheek. You're just following along with me. So visual is 55%, verbal is only 7%, and vocal is 38%. Now, let me first tell you what this doesn't mean. This doesn't mean that only 7% of what you say matters. These numbers refer to what he calls an inconsistent message. So let's imagine if I was teaching this right now and I was doing it like this. I'm really excited to talk to you about this study. Albert Morabian's a really cool person. He wrote this amazing book. I mean, you'd go, what? This doesn't make any sense. So we have to be consistent when we're talking. Oh, what's the difference between vocal and verbal? Vocal is how you sound. Verbal is the words. So again, content is the thing. Now think about it. When you're preparing for an important assignment, and let's say for some of you that you have been in speaking, like debate or whatever, it doesn't have to be debate. It could be anything where you have to talk. You spend, if you're like the rest of the human race, most of us are spending all of our energy on what we're going to say. What is the message? Is it organized? Does it flow well? And yet if we spend all of our time there, we miss a huge opportunity. We miss an opportunity to recognize that behaviors, so posture, hand gestures, voice, all of this actually will override the message if it's not consistent. So if the words don't match the content that we're saying, or excuse me, the words don't match the way we come across, our message is not going to be heard very much. Only 7% of our message is going to be heard. So this is a huge opportunity. Any questions on that or any reactions to that in the chat? I'm guessing that surprises people because a lot of you had vocal. And of course, when you have no visual, then vocal definitely overrides. You don't have the visual. Now, 84% of your credibility, what matters is 84% of that is in your voice and 16% of that is in the content. So if you have a voice like this, or you sound really monotone and you just talk like this, that's not going to be very engaging. And if we want to be remembered, we want to stand out, we want to speak with confidence and clarity, then we've got to remember some of these factors that I'm going to tell you about in just a moment. So any questions about this so far?
Karen, can I ask you about, you know, that America Got Talent, when they turn the chairs, how do you describe that? You know, when the visual is not as important, you know, people are back. So what disconnects? Because I think it's.
Yep, that's a really good reminder. And that's where that percentage that I just mentioned comes into play. Now, 84% of how you sound alone is where the credibility is, and 16% of what you're actually saying. Now, music, I would say overall is a little bit of a different experience. So I'm not as an expert in the music field, because I think a lot of that is based on feelings. But that does bring up a really good point. Like, in other words, if you don't see the person and you're just hearing them, but actually, as I'm talking about this, it's really very similar, because people buy off on emotion and then we justify with fact. So much of the way that we take a person in is through our emotions. So that's actually a really good segue to my next point. And that is around the way our brains work. Our brains are, we've got a lot, it's very complex. I'm not going to get into a lot of detail, but what I want to tell you is that a lot of people think if I just say the words, they're going to get it. Or in the case of America's Got Talent, if I just sing the words and I sound pretty good, then they're going to get it. And yet it takes so much more than this. But let me explain this. Let's say that I was going to talk to, let's go with Caitlin, since you shared earlier, and no pressure to speak, but all I want to say is, let's say that I'm talking with you, Caitlin, and I'm trying to influence you to come with me to a party. Well, we're not really doing that right now, but if I want to convince you to come to something that I want to go to or be a part of, I might think if I just say the right words and transfer it, like from my brain to hers, she's going to get it. But Caitlin's got to decide, do I like Karen? Is she trustworthy? Do I think that she'd be a fun person to hang out with? There's all of these things emotionally that we're taking a person in by. And that's why it's so important to recognize this, especially at an early age, that people buy off on us emotionally. Think about the last purchase that you made. I'm guessing for most of us, we buy, oh, that's a really cool looking thing, or, oh, like what phone you might want to get if you have phones, or anything that you go, oh, I really want that. And then we go, oh, here's why I need it. But usually we buy on emotion and then justify with fact. That's why marketing is so good. That's why when you watch an ad for something, or you're watching on Netflix or wherever there might be an ad, and you go, oh, I want that thing. You don't even know why, but you're just drawn into it. You may not even need it. Anybody have examples of that? Is there anything that you've ever bought that you really didn't need, but you justified it because you wanted it?
I can show you my closet.
Yeah, this happens a lot with clothes for sure. Okay, let's talk about why this matters, okay? So leadership presence, again, doesn't matter where you're at in your life. Leadership, being a leader is all about speaking with confidence. And we do that in 3 ways: through connection, energy, and credibility. let's talk about these 3 buckets and how they relate to things behaviorally. We have to have eye contact. When you're on a call like this, when you're speaking with someone, whether it's your teachers or another student or whoever, you want to look right at that webcam. That's going to make people feel like you're looking at them. In person, of course, you want to look at people and not look down, because when you're not looking at people, it could look like you're not really trustworthy. Could also look like you don't really know what you're talking about. And it could just look like you're nervous or unsure. So that's eye contact. And we're going to demonstrate these in a moment with a role play. So eye contact, and then there's a lot under energy. We've got to show energy. First of all, it starts with posture. You don't want to be slouching down to the side, or when you're standing, leaning on one leg, your hand on your hip. If you really want to come across in a way that people will listen and that you're going to be memorable and stand out, you want to have good posture. Yeah, is everybody doing this now? I see some of you. Now we're in a virtual environment, so movement isn't really counting here because we're usually seated, but in a real situation, you want to be moving around so that you have some energy, but you want to move with purpose. You don't want to be like a caged animal, just constantly moving, or kind of like the drunken sailor where we can't really figure out what we're doing and we step up, we step back. And then gestures. Important to use gestures. You don't want to do it like this though. That's a little too much. You want to just use normal gestures like you would like when you're talking. But here's a key thing to do. Be careful about your hands clasping together. This makes us look nervous, or we call it the fig leaf when you put it down in front of your protective areas between your legs. You don't need to have that fig leaf there. You want to keep an open posture so that you come across as inviting, relatable, and approachable. One of my clients used to say, I have to get my hands to break up with each other, but they keep trying to get back together. It's a natural habit. We do these things because in part, they're just a habit we've had, but it's also a protective measure. It's almost like we need to protect ourselves. And yet, if you can open up those gestures, use them, and then rest them occasionally, you'll have a nice balance. Because with energy, you don't want to be crazy like an Energizer bunny all the time. That's overwhelming to people, and people don't really want to keep listening to you. So you want to have a balance. You want to have energy enough that people stay interested in what you're talking about, but you also want to have some calm in between. Now, let's talk about expression. Many of you, I'm sure, have heard of RBF, resting bee face. And that's where we have this serious expression. We might not be upset or mad, but we come across that way. So you want to remember to lighten up, smile a little bit occasionally, have some of that lightness in your face so that you come across as approachable and inviting and likable. And it's really important. We do business with people we like, we do projects with people we like, and we want to be in class with people we like. Now, I know that we have all different types of people in the world, so that's important too, to be inclusive. And also remember how you come across is a direct reflection of who you are. So you want to think about your own, even personal brand. Every single one of you has a personal brand. And something we don't think about very often is how we're coming across to people. So this is a whole level of emotional intelligence that's really important to be aware of. Is number one, the number one component of emotional intelligence is to be self-aware. And then how your actions are affecting other people. And the truth is, if you think about personal brand and just think about yourself walking around in the world, how do you want people to experience you? Think about that. That's a huge thing to start really thinking, yeah, how do I want people to do that? Because a lot of us, most of us as human beings, we're pretty selfish people. I mean, honestly, and we're focused on ourselves. We see things through the lens of ourselves, and that's normal. But how can we try to focus on what does somebody else maybe need right now? How could I come across in a way that's inviting to them? So voice is our other one related to energy. Some of you mentioned this in the Jamboard. Speaking up with volume, projection, and really having that confidence. So number one, just speaking up, period. But remembering to use this wonderful muscle that if any of you are singers, you know this muscle. It's right around the stomach. It's called the diaphragm. And that's going to help you to project your voice, because when we don't project, we sound tentative. Like sometimes, let's say I didn't really project as much right now, I would sound a little soft. And then there's also something called upspeak. Many of you have heard of this, but it's when we have a statement, but we end it with a question. My name is Karen Laos. I'm originally from Minneapolis, but now I live in San Francisco. I do not recommend that you speak like that, by the way. You want to speak with conviction and declaration. Do you think? You got to say your name. I would recommend everybody right now, you can say it out loud, either with all of us, or you can say it to yourself. See if you can say your name with a period. And let me give you two examples. So here's me as a mini introduction. Hi, my name is Karen Laos, and I'm originally from Minneapolis, but now I live in San Francisco. Or, hi, my name is Karen Laos. I'm originally from Minneapolis, but now I live in San Francisco. Do you hear how different that is? And by the way, I coach full-grown adults on this. 90% of the people that I coach do that upspeak when they say their name in an introduction. So you will be so much farther ahead of the curve if you can start practicing your introduction and saying it in sentence form. Most of us, the way we speak, we just speak without any punctuation. It becomes one run-on sentence. So you want to think about punctuating and pausing. And that leads me to the next point here, is just be plain spoken, say words that people understand, and then pause, because that's going to really help credibility. Sometimes we speak really quickly because we just want to get it over with. And think about putting a pause in your language. That will also help with somebody also mentioned on Jamboard, the filler words like like, and so, and these words that get in the way of us looking smart and credible. So remember, do your best to pause. And one of the best things that you could do for yourself, if you haven't done this already, is record yourself and listen back to how you sound and how you look. That is the best way to see how you're coming across. And these are some tips for you. Again, just to review, there's connection, energy, and credibility. And every one of those things is linked to an actual behavior that you can practice today. So out of all those things that you heard me say, I want to invite you to pick one thing that you can practice in the next week. And I will even suggest record yourself in the next week and listen back. Most of us hate the sound of our voice. I hear that all the time. No, I don't want to listen. I don't want to listen. But you might as well hear what other people hear, so you have a reality of how you come across. So I'm going to stop there, see if there are any questions. You can throw them in the chat or feel free to say them out loud. And then I have one more concept, and then we're going to do a role play for anybody that would be brave enough to step in.
That is so true. I used to practice against the mirror, on the mirror, before all this, on the mirror as well. And now that I hear myself, I'm like, oh my gosh, that's horrible. I don't like how I sound.
Oh, no. I think what's important to remember is that we all have a beautiful voice that's unique to us. I know it's hard. I know. Again, I don't want to sound like, oh, everything's perfect. No, I get it. I don't like watching myself either, but I can tell you this, watching myself and listening to myself has taught me a lot. I once did a presentation many, many years ago when I was first starting out in my business life. And in that 20-minute talk, I said, 41 times. That's a lot of knows. But I would have had no idea if I hadn't listened to it. So that's why that self-awareness is so important.
That is so true. When we have our assistant principal that became a principal, and then high up there. The first time he spoke to our class, I noticed he was saying N and was it or N? And I start tallying. And at the end, it was like 70 as well. And so I gave it to him. I was brave enough and I said, I'm sorry. This is constructive criticism. I just want to help you. This is like, you just move on. Sorry.
How did he take it?
He was, first time. So he was new. He was still, graceful. But
okay.
I hope I didn't pay for it later.
Well, it's so good to be aware of that. And I want everybody to know here, just because like I think about the people that I coach as adults, we all have these habits. Doesn't matter if you're a kid or you're an adult, we all have them. The key is to start early and practice, because I can't even tell you the amount of people that have been in the business world for 10 or 20 years and they've never seen themselves on video professionally. I know we all have seen ourselves probably in the home videos or on social media, but have you seen yourself really giving an actual talk and seeing how you come across? Because you want to be your natural self. You don't want to be a presentation version or robot of yourself, but you want to be natural, but you also want to be polished. And so it's finding the balance of both. So that's why I wanted to walk you through these behavioral components, because they make a huge difference and they're very tangible. So a lot of times people say, well, how do you build trust? Well, I can tell you it's through starting with eye contact, starting with how your vocal tone is, how you're coming across through your body language. All of this combines to do that. So let me talk about one more concept, and that's about getting to the point. A lot of people ramble, and I have been guilty of this too, where we just go off on all these tangents and then people have no idea what you're actually trying to say. So there's two things. One, there's the rule in journalism called the rule of 3. Most people can't retain more than 3 things or 3 points at a time. So you want to think about whatever you might be talking to people about. Now, maybe not in casual conversation, you're not going to be that formal. But when you have to do a talk or something like that, think of 3 key points, and even tell people that right up front. There are 3 key things that I want to share with you. And then you have your 3 points, and then you're done. So there's also a presentation mantra. Some of you may have heard of this already, but it's tell them what you're going to tell them, tell them what you told them. So that just equates to an introduction, a body of a message, and then a conclusion. So tell them what you're going to tell them, tell them what you told them. The other thing around getting to the point is to have one key point or one key idea. For any of you scrolling through social media, or even if any of you listen or watch the news, there's always a headline. The headline or the subject line of an email is what makes us decide, do I want to keep listening to this? Do I want to keep reading this? So you want to have one point. And in journalism, again, it's called the lead of the story, the lead of your message. So let me give you an example of this in real life. I was coaching a woman who was interviewing for a job internally at her organization. So I did a role play, which I'm going to ask us to do here. And that is, join a breakout room. Is that? Okay. I see it says join a breakout room, but I'm going to keep going. So in this interview, this mock interview, I asked her, well, the typical interview question, tell me about yourself. And I'm going to tell you, she sure did. She gave lots of detail. And I stopped her. I said, time out, time out. There's so much information there. It's like you're vomiting your information at me, or you're just giving a data dump of your life. That is not going to help me as a hiring manager trying to decide if I have 5 other interviews and you're one of those people that I'm interviewing, what's going to help me decide to pick you? You've got to pick something that sets you apart. So what happens when we give this data dump of information to people is they can't figure out what's most important. you're essentially putting the work on the audience to make them figure it out. And if it takes too many calories for us to burn to figure out what your point is, we're not going to probably listen, or we're going to tune out. So instead, I said to her, what's the most important thing about you? Like, what are you passionate about? And she said, well, I love research. So I said, great. So lead with that. So we did it again. And I said, tell me about yourself. And she started by saying, before I give you any detail, what I want you to know is the most important thing about me for you to know is that I love research. And that became the lead of her story. It was a beautiful example. Then any of the rest of the detail didn't really matter that much. It supported her point of loving research, but it didn't make us have to figure out, okay, what are all those 10 things and keep track of those 10 things? But it helped us keep track of the one thing that really stood out about her. So those are some tips for you. Any questions? And who would be willing to do a role play right now? Exact same role play that I just mentioned. And this, by the way, is another gift card. Starbucks gift card, $5. Please feel free to speak up. Ladies, I want to encourage you to speak up. Speak your truth. Show your voice. Let's do it. You're going to learn a lot when you actually experience something. As learners, when we experience things, we get a lot more out of it than just listening to other people. So who would be willing? It's pretty easy.
You can unmute yourself or just have a reaction next to your name. We'll pick you. What I was thinking, it was right now, a lot of scholarships are there, a lot of interviews are there, and everything is happening in here. So, you know, we got to practice that.
Yes. And the practicing is what makes all the difference, because I will tell you, as a young person, I was so consumed with other people, with what other people thought of me. I wanted to be liked. Mm-hmm. And it trapped me. It was like a prison. So I want to encourage, if any of you feel that way, like it's a natural thing. We want to be liked. I get that, but I will tell you that it's a choice that we make, as opposed to just speaking our truth and saying what we think and not being afraid to be heard and to be seen. Because again, I want to remind you that every single one of you is a masterpiece. Seriously. You are different from everybody else. And I also think one other thing that I learned is that when I actually became free of what other people thought of me, it was so liberating, and it gave me the freedom to speak up and to not care as much. Of course, I still care. I'd love for people to like me, but I'm not dependent on that anymore. And that was something that plagued me for a long time. And if you can start early, start speaking up and really being free from that, you will see a huge difference, because a lot of us are walking around the world not actually showing our true selves. And I want to encourage you to know that you, as your true self, you are enough just by who you are. You are absolutely enough. Wow. Nobody wants to do this? Come on.
I'm going to encourage someone from my class. Let's do it. Show them. Come on, step in.
Extra credit.
And $5 gift card.
Who's it going to be? Step in there.
What's the $5?
Show them what you show me in class. Come on, Talia.
Oh, somebody said they'll do it without the gift card reward. Okay. I'm just going to write this person. We'll see if he or she wants to speak up. So anybody, you have the freedom to unmute, speak up, tell me you want to do the role play and we'll do it together. And you're going to learn something deeper than when you would learn if you were just listening.
Let me tell you, people pay for this training.
Yes, that's true. A lot of money.
So she's great. You know, we're thankful that you're here because, you know,
thank you.
charge for this. And she's here for free just for you guys because she knows you guys will benefit and are brave enough. So come on, let's go. Who's going to do it?
All right. So I'm going to keep going, but I want you to interrupt me because I have one other thing that I want to say. And I want to encourage the person that privately chatted with me to speak up because I'm not going to call on anybody. I want to use this as an opportunity for you to speak up as well. Okay. So feel free, unmute, just jump in. I actually want to challenge somebody to interrupt me because most of us, we don't like to interrupt, and that's great because that is polite. But on the other hand, I'm giving you permission right now to do that. So I'd love to have you interject. And so I want to talk about one other thing. And do I see somebody's coming up to the stage?
I'll go.
Caitlin?
Okay. Yeah, sure.
Excellent. Hi, Caitlin. Thank you so much. Okay, so let me ask you this. Do you have anything coming up related to an interview?
Yeah, I actually applied for a summer job and yeah.
Awesome. Okay. Would you be willing to share anything about that? Otherwise, I can just ask you a general question as if we're interviewing.
I don't know too much about it. It's just
Okay.
I'll be supervising kids.
It's supervising kids? Oh, great. Okay. So I'm going to start with a general question. And it's the same thing that I asked this woman that I was coaching. So let's pretend we're in an interview and just do your best. So Caitlin, so glad that you were able to come in today. And, you know, I want to interview you to potentially take this job. And I do have some other candidates that I'm looking at, but we're really interested in learning more about you. So let's start with just, could you tell me about yourself?
I'm someone who's real, like you could say a social butterfly. I really like interacting with people and meeting new people. I enjoy playing sports a lot, and especially with other people, that's what makes it more fun. And I could just say I'm a quick learner and I can multitask well.
Okay, thank you. Let's give her a round of applause. Great job, Caitlin. Really nice and brief also. And you got to that point. I love the social butterfly as the lead of your story. So may I offer you a suggestion?
Go ahead.
Okay, what I want to suggest is to bring up that it sounds like, and I have a question and then a suggestion. Is the social butterfly piece of yourself the most important thing for us to know?
I would say, yeah.
Okay, it sounded like it. And I love that you led with that. So that was really good. A little tweak is to guide us a little bit more, or guide me as the potential hiring manager to say something like, you don't have to say it exactly like this, but to say something like the biggest, wait, excuse me. The most important thing you need to know about me is that I'm a social butterfly. Or the one thing that sets me apart is that I'm a social butterfly. Something that guides us to have a little more strength in that, because if right after that, when you said something like, you said, I'm a team player, I can't remember the exact words, I'm good at multitasking, that even though you said the social butterfly piece first, which did stand out, I would use a little more vocal emphasis and even in what you're saying to help that stand out. Like, for example, you know, the most important thing for you to know about me is that I'm a social butterfly. In addition to that, I also am great at multitasking, a team player, and I draw people out because of being social.
Okay.
So something like that. You don't have to say it exactly like I said that, but my point is that I want to coach you to be a little bit more emphatic in pulling out the social butterfly piece. Would you be willing to try it again?
The whole thing or just that part?
Just the beginning, just the beginning.
A thing that sets me apart from other people is that I'm a social butterfly.
Nice. And you said it with great conviction too. You had a nice period. A lot of people might have said, the thing that sets me apart is I'm a social butterfly. And then it doesn't sound like we know what we're talking about. So, Caitlin, beautiful job. I am so glad that you volunteered. Thank you so much for your courage to do that in front of all these people, 80 people on this call. So that is a huge step in even building more and more confidence. I wish you all the best, and I hope you get the job that's perfect for you that you want.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you very much for volunteering. All right. Well, it's almost 10 o'clock. Any questions or anything else from the teachers here that you'd like me to cover?
Ladies, if you don't have a question, I will mention about, do you also have a podcast? You want to tell us about your podcast?
Sure. I have a podcast called Ignite Your Confidence, and it's geared toward women who want to speak up and stand out. But of course, if you're a guy, you can listen too. It's all inclusive. It's for whoever wants to listen to it. But what's really important to me is that I give specific strategies for people, practical tips. It's not just talking and inspiration, but it's something where you're going to feel inspired to take action. And I also interview people that have written books and that are fairly influential in their fields. So that would be something you're welcome to listen to. And you can also sign up for my email list if you want tips. I will say it's more geared, of course, to women leaders, but you're absolutely welcome to sign up for that. And I'll just put my website in the chat here if anybody wants to check me out. And also, while I'm on social media, I'm very active on social media. Karen Laos Consulting is my IG handle or username. So please feel free to follow me if you'd like. And if you want to reach out, I encourage you to reach out. I'm going to tell you something. When I do talks, especially to younger people, it's amazing how few people actually follow up. Be in that 1% that takes an opportunity to reach out to me and we can have a conversation. I'd be happy to give you some advice or anything that you want related to communication and confidence. So you can also email me. You can just DM me on Instagram, or you can certainly just email me. Whoops, I just gave my information to somebody privately. So let me do that to everyone. Excuse me. Try that again.
Have a foundation that you started in 2010, Kissing Frog Project.
Oh,
What's
whoops.
the foundation about? I know we have like 2 minutes, but hey.
Oh, that was for single women to be true to themselves. And hold on, I'm not really good at multitasking. Hold on. That's my IG handle.
Oh, we should be following that foundation. Well,
yeah, well, unfortunately the website it keeps getting corrupted, even though it's like I'm not doing anything crazy on it. But it was really born out of my passion because I was too often looking to other, like for me, just in my crazy dating life in the past, I'm married now, but in my crazy dating life, I was always looking for a guy to complete me. Like, oh, well, if he likes this, oh, maybe if I have this guy, and I realized I wasn't being true to myself. I was just kind of doing whatever the guy wanted. And that's just based on how I grew up as well, with my dad really being the one in the household that called the shots. So I learned as a kid that I didn't have a voice. And that was what was modeled to me. So it was 2010, I think, is when I started out Kissing Frogs Project. So it's all about helping women be true to themselves through speaking engagements. And it's very similar to what I do now. Absolutely. I've always had a heart for women to speak up and be themselves because I was hiding for too long. And when I finally found my voice and realized you can actually be free and feel empowered, I want everybody to be free. So That's a good way to end, isn't it? Let's all be free.
Good, it is.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
One more question.
Go for
Since we are, a lot of, maybe students and we are immigrants and we have an accent.
Yes.
So, and I read that you spoke around the world and everything. What is with the accent? What is their bringing out? Because I'm sure there will be students who will come to live in the country,
Yes, yes.
how to
And
say
I'm going to do this really
normal.
quickly because I have another call waiting for me. So
Okay.
it's all about, number one, acknowledging and owning the unique value that you bring. Your accent is beautiful. Whoever has an accent, we all have accents. Recognize that it is beautiful. Don't worry about, oh, I don't like my accent, or, oh, I don't sound good because of my accent. No more of that negative self-talk. You've got to have this self-talk to own that you have accent, and that's part of who you are. The second part, you also want to be understood though. So make sure that you pause more than you probably think you need to. Pause at the end of a sentence to allow people to absorb what you said. So on that note, I'm going to thank you so much for having me. Wonderful to be here. Thanks everybody. And JC, please reach out to me for that gift card. Caitlin, it's available for you if you want it. I know you said you didn't want it, but if you want it and change your mind, I'm just an email away. But I want to put the onus on you guys to email me, and then I will send you something. Have a great day, everybody.
Have a good morning. Thank
Okay,
you.
bye.